Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. I'm really glad you're here. Today, we're talking about a question that many people quietly ask themselves, especially when they reach their 30s. Is it too late to change your life after 30? Maybe you are listening to this and you are 31, 35, or even 45, and you feel stuck. You might be in a job that doesn't make you happy, or maybe you feel like you chose the wrong path in life. Perhaps you wanted to study something else, live in another country, start a business, or follow a passion like art, music, or writing. But now you think, I'm already over 30. Isn't it too late for me? This is a very common feeling, and you are definitely not alone. Society often gives us a kind of timeline for life. We are told that in our 20s we should study, travel, find ourselves, and build our careers. Then in our 30s, we are supposed to be stable, successful, and settled. But real life is rarely so simple or so organized. Let's start with an important truth: there is no official deadline for changing your life. There is no rule that says you must choose your final career at 25 or that you must follow the same path forever. Life is not a straight line. It is more like a long road with many turns, stops, and new directions. Many people actually discover what they really want later in life. When you are in your 20s, you often make decisions with very little experience. You choose a university major, a first job, or even a partner, without really knowing who you are yet. Your personality, your values, and your interests continue to grow and change in your 30s and beyond. Think about it this way: by the time you are 30, you usually know yourself better than you did at 20. You have experienced success and failure. You have made mistakes and learned from them. You understand what stresses you, what motivates you, and what makes you feel alive. This self-knowledge is actually a huge advantage when you want to make a change. However, even if changing your life after 30 is possible, it is also true that it can feel more difficult. There are real reasons for this. Many people in their 30s have more responsibilities. They may have a full-time job, a partner, children, or financial commitments like a mortgage or loans. These responsibilities can make big changes feel risky or even impossible. For example, imagine someone who wants to leave a stable job in finance to become a teacher or a graphic designer. At 23, this change might feel exciting and not too scary. But at 35, when you have bills to pay and maybe a family depending on you, the same decision can feel very dangerous. You might ask yourself, what if I fail? What if I lose everything I have built? These fears are normal and reasonable. Changing your life does involve risk. But staying in a life that makes you unhappy also has a cost. Over time, feeling stuck, bored, or unfulfilled can affect your mental health, your energy, and even your relationships. So the real question is not only is it risky to change, but also is it safe to stay the same? Another important idea is that changing your life does not always mean making one huge, dramatic decision. You do not have to quit your job tomorrow, move to another country next week, and completely restart your life. Sometimes, the best changes are small and slow. For example, if you are interested in a new career, you can start by learning in your free time. Today, there are many online courses, free tutorials, podcasts, and communities where you can learn new skills. You can study in the evenings or on weekends while keeping your current job. This reduces the risk and gives you time to see if you really enjoy the new field. Let's say you are 34 and you work in an office, but you have always been interested in psychology. You could start by reading books, listening to lectures online, or even taking a part-time course. After a year or two, you might decide to study more seriously or change your career step by step. This kind of gradual change is often more realistic and less stressful. There are also many real-life examples of people who changed their lives after 30, 40, or even 50. Some famous writers published their first books later in life. Many successful entrepreneurs started their companies in their 30s or 40s. They used the experience and skills they had already gained in other jobs to build something new. But you do not need to be famous or rich to prove that change is possible. Think about people around you. Maybe you know someone who went back to university in their mid-30s, someone who changed careers, or someone who moved to another country later in life. These stories are more common than we think, but we don't always talk about them enough. One reason why we feel it is too late is because we compare ourselves to others. Social media can make this feeling even stronger. We see people who are 25 and already successful, traveling the world, or starting businesses. We start to believe that if we are not in the same place at the same age, we have somehow failed. But everyone's path is different, and success has many different meanings. It is also important to remember that life expectancy is increasing in many countries. Many people will work and live actively into their 60s or 70s. If you are 30 today, you might have 30 or 40 more years of working life ahead of you. That is a very long time to stay in a situation that does not make you happy. From this perspective, changing your life at 30 or 35 is not late at all. It is actually quite early. Of course, changing your life is not only about careers. It can also be about relationships, health, hobbies, or personal growth. Maybe you want to become more confident, learn a new language, travel more, or take better care of your body. These kinds of changes are possible at any age, and often they become easier when you are older because you are more disciplined and focused. Let's talk for a moment about fear, because fear is usually the biggest barrier to change. Fear of failure, fear of losing money, fear of what other people will say, or fear of starting again from zero. When you are over 30, you might feel that you have already invested so much time and energy in your current path that changing direction would mean wasting all those years. But in reality, very little experience is truly wasted. Skills are often transferable. If you worked in customer service, you probably developed communication and problem-solving skills. If you worked in management, you learned about organization, leadership, and responsibility. These skills can be useful in many different careers and situations. Think of your past not as a mistake, but as training. Even if you change direction, you are not starting from zero. You are starting from experience. And experience is something that younger people often do not have yet. Another helpful step when you are thinking about changing your life is to define what a better life actually means for you. Sometimes we feel unhappy or restless, but we cannot clearly say what we want instead. Do you want more money, more free time, more creativity, more stability, or more adventure? Different goals will lead to different choices. It can be useful to write down your values and priorities. What is most important to you right now? Is it family, health, personal development, financial security, or something else? When you are clear about your values, it becomes easier to make decisions and to see which changes are worth the risk. You can also try small experiments. For example, if you think you might enjoy teaching, you could start by tutoring someone or volunteering to teach in your community. If you are interested in writing, you could start a blog or write short stories in your free time. These experiments allow you to test your interests in real life before making a big commitment. Another challenge after 30 is the opinion of other people. Friends, family members, or colleagues might not understand why you want to change. They may say things like, "But you have such a good job," or "Why would you start over now?" Sometimes they are worried about you, and sometimes they are simply used to seeing you in your current role. It is important to listen to advice, but also to remember that you are the one who has to live your life every day. Other people do not feel your stress, your boredom, or your dreams. Respectful communication can help. You can explain your reasons and your plan, so they see that your decision is not impulsive, but thoughtful. Planning is another key part of changing your life successfully. Dreams are important, but they need a realistic plan to become reality. If you want to change careers, you might need to calculate how much money you need to save before you make the change. You might need to study for a certain period or build a portfolio of work. Breaking your big goal into smaller steps can make it feel much more possible. For example, instead of saying, "I will completely change my career this year," you could say, "In the next 6 months, I will complete 2 online courses and start one small project in my new field." This kind of clear and measurable goal helps you stay motivated and see your progress. It is also okay if your change does not look impressive from the outside. Sometimes, the most important changes are internal. You might learn to say no more often, set better boundaries at work, or spend more time on activities that give you energy. These changes may not appear dramatic, but they can improve your quality of life in a very real way. Let's also talk about mistakes. When you try something new, especially later in life, you may feel more embarrassed to fail. You might think, at my age, I should already know what I'm doing. But learning always includes making mistakes, no matter how old you are. Children fall many times before they learn to walk, and adults also need time and patience to learn new skills. In fact, older learners often have advantages. They are usually more disciplined, better at managing their time, and more focused on their goals. They may not learn as quickly as teenagers in some areas, but they often learn more deeply because they understand why the skill is important. Another idea that can help is to stop thinking in terms of too late and start thinking in terms of from now. You cannot change your past, but you can always change what you do next. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is today. This simple idea reminds us that action in the present is always more powerful than regret about the past. So, is it too late to change your life after 30? The honest answer is no. It may be more complicated than at 20, and you may need to plan more carefully, but it is absolutely possible. People change careers, start businesses, learn new languages, build new relationships, and discover new passions at every stage of life. What matters most is not your age, but your willingness to learn, to take small risks, and to move step by step toward a life that feels more meaningful to you. Even small changes, repeated over time, can lead to a completely different life a few years later. If you are listening to this and you feel unhappy or stuck, maybe today is a good day to start thinking about one small step you can take. You do not need to have all the answers right now. You just need to be curious enough to explore and brave enough to try. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If this topic made you think about your own life, that is already a great first step. Remember, your story is still being written, no matter your age. And you always have the power to choose what the next chapter will look like.